you, Chairman. And also I would like to express my gratitude towards IDSA's invitation to enable me to participate into very important conference. My topic is economic global shift toward Asia, realities and challenges. So into two parts. One is the realities. It is quite obvious that the global economic center of gravity has shifted toward Asia, especially East Asia. So there are several examples to show that kind of changing. In terms of GDP scale, we can see that in 2012, the combined GDP of East Asian countries alone could be around $18 trillion, while in the same year, US is about $15.68 trillion. Euro countries stood at $13.8 trillion. That is to say that in 2012, the combined GDP of East Asian countries has accounted for about 119% of the GDP of the US. In comparison, in history, in 2006, the combined GDP of East Asian countries was around 9.6 trillion. That is about 72% of that time's US GDP. In 2002, it is about 64% of that time's US GDP. So from the figure, we can see that the shift is quite outstanding in terms of GDP. While in terms of trade volume, we can see that the East Asian trade, whether it is intra-regional trade or inter-regional trade, we can see it accounting more than half of the global trade. Take China, for example, we can see that in 2012, China has overtaken the US as the world's largest trading partner, or trading nation. That is to say that by the year of 2011, China has already become the largest trading partner to about 124 countries in the world. While in the same time, US has become the #1 trading partner to only about 76 countries. From this, we can see the shift. And also the combined trade volume to the global trade amongst 4 countries, that China, India, Japan, and South Korea, occupying about 21% of the global trade volume, while the US is only about 11%. So in terms of trade, we can also see this kind of shift. While in terms of regional economic arrangements, this kind of efforts also has been made by the East Asian countries. The most outstanding examples are the 5 bilateral FTA arrangements progress. That is, FTA arrangements between ASEAN countries and its 6 partners. And more significantly, in current years, we can see that ASEAN countries and its 6 partners are making efforts to upgrade the 5 FTAs into RCEP. That is with the purpose of building up a new regional free trade regime with higher quality. Once the RCEP be established by the end of 2015, the RCEP will become the largest FTA regime in terms of a population, at least in the world, which involving about 3.3 billion populations directly, and the total GDP could be around nearly 20 trillion US dollars. Besides, and also very significantly, the China, South Korea, and Japan are promoting very hard the trilateral FTA negotiations and also the currency swap deals. Although, of course, every now and then disturbed by the quarrels among the 3 countries, but the efforts of and the negotiations had not been stopped. The 3 countries still making the efforts in that direction. While in terms of foreign exchange reserve, it is more outstanding that East Asia has become the supporting pillar of US dollar's dominance in the global economic activities. East Asia has more than 70% of the world foreign exchange reserve, among which 70% are US dollar assets. 70% of the money purchasing the US Treasury securities have come from East Asia. Although that in terms of GDP, in terms of trade volumes, in terms of regional economic arrangement, especially in terms of foreign exchange reserve, you can see that this kind of economic shift toward Asia, especially East Asia, is very outstanding, visible. But still, this kind of global shift toward Asia is still in process, that still has a long way to go. And more importantly, such a process could even be stopped and be reversed. So what are the challenges ahead of the Asian countries? First of all, in terms of policy-making powers, or in terms of sayings in the policy-making area, especially in reforming the international and the regional economic institutions. The US and the EU are still playing dominant roles in rule-making. In recent years, although we can see that there have some modest reforms in the existing international economic institutions, for example, that China's shares in IMF has been increased from 3.7% to 6.3%, or the voting powers in IMF are also being increased accordingly, just secondary to the US and Japan. And also we see that this kind of reform also occurred in WB, in World Bank. And also the voting power and the shares in IMF and the WB have been increased accordingly for India also. But however, the old dominant powers has been still controlling the existing economic systems. For example, that the US alone still have the veto power in blocking any major decisions made by IMF and WB, because the US has still control, holding about 17% voting powers in these institutions. While the reform we have done by IMF and WB has been at the cost of EU and Japan, not at the cost of US. The US, the positions have been further enhanced, I can say. What is more alarming is that the existing dominant powers centered with US has kicked off a new set of initiatives. The purpose of TTP, TTIP, or even TISA is to preventing, my personal understanding is that preventing the economic global shift from the old center to the new center, that is East Asia in particular. So in recent years, the TTP's efforts, the TTIP's efforts, my personal understanding is that it's sending new rules and the new regimes which may bypass or even marginalize the function of WB, which they regard as a facilitator of the current global economic shift toward East Asia. And also they are touching upon the kick off the negotiations to liberalize trade in services, that is the TISA. While all these kinds of new initiations or negotiations initiatives, they being purposely neglect at least the two economies, rising powers, that is India and China. So as a matter of fact, the obvious sideline of both China and India is more than a coincidence. So each of the proposed new arrangements could significantly strengthen the West grip on global standards and norm setting, and reduce the East's bargaining positions in the future economic institutions. So in general, the global economic leaders in rule-making and policy-making are still composed of old faces, like the US. Secondly, the economic performance of East Asia still lacks a solid financial base or financial support, means the financial infrastructure support. Although we found that RMB is quickly becoming the dollar's major competition for dominance in global trade, but the US dollar is still functioning as the bedrock of the global financial system. Currently, China's RMB was used in 8.66% of global trade finance transactions, while the US dollars accounting for more than 80% of global trade finance. So Asian currencies are still used in a negligible quantity. Moreover, there is no Asian central bank, there is no financial power or powerful financial infrastructure in Asian countries to match the economic might and the dynamics in the global trade. Also, there is no parallel financial capital in Asia on par with London or New York. Moreover, we find that Wall Street still controls the global money transactions and major commodities trading. And the US and EU has enjoyed unparalleled privileges and dominance in the global economic arena. We can find that in the global foreign trade, most of the transactions or foreign trade was undertaken by using US dollars. Even Chinese foreign trade itself, mostly using US dollars. We found that only about 11.7% of China's foreign trade has been undertaken in RMB in 2013. Although Chinese economy ranks second in the world, the free flow of capital in and out of China is still under much restriction. Although there is a saying that the free flow of capital still needs to wait for another 3 or 4 years. And the modern bond markets in China are still underdeveloped. The free convertibility of RMB still has some way to go. This is the case for China. Let's take the case for Japan. Although Japanese economy has ranked second for more than 30 years, from 1978 to 2009, and still ranks the third in the world, but due to the high fluctuation of Japanese yen, so Japanese yen still cannot play a major role in the financial transactions. So although Singapore has also become one well-known financial center in the world, but the competitiveness of Singapore in allocating international financial assets still needs more promotion. So in one word, we can say that the global financial power is still controlled in the hands of old centers, not the rising powers. Not the Asian powers. The US, the EU has not only controlled the trading pricing system or regime, but also the trading rules. Thirdly, we can see that Asia's innovation capacity still lags behind, especially lags behind of the US and the EU, although that we found that the number of patent applications, science papers published by Asian countries has witnessed the rocketing ingress, especially in China, in India. Although more and more high-tech companies have mushroomed in Asian countries, but the capacity to lead the global tendency of industry is still lacking in Asia. The capacity to undertake technological, scientific, and industrial renovation or revolution is still lacking in Asia. Especially the significant innovations and inventions in the areas which has profound impacts upon human lives and economic activities, like the new materials area, big data technology, automatic driving vehicle, living energy, Internet of Things, 3D printing, biotech technology, and etc., has mainly created and promoted or dominated by the US and the EU. So we can see that this kind of developments, which closely related to the future of the humankind, they are still controlled or dominated by the old powers. Finally, the internal strategic mistrust, even confrontations among Asian powers, have been disturbing the regional economic integration efforts, especially the mistrust among China, India, China, Japan, and also Japan, South Korea. Our vivid example is that this kind of mistrust has preventing the smooth process of the negotiations among the three East Asian countries, among the process of the currency swap deals. among the three countries. So if the shift of global economy gravity towards Asia be not disturbed or be not reversed, it needs all the Asian countries more unremitting efforts. In general, whether or not the shift could be realized, materialized, largely depends upon whether Asian powers, especially China, Japan, India, could overcome the disputes and differences and make joint efforts with success in the same direction. That is my presentation. Thank you.